Now, I am climbing up the stairs onto the boat. This boat takes me to Moshuni, a chor or a river island. Moshuni is one of the 104 river islands that comprises the Sundarbans. Of these 104 chors or river islands, only 54 are inhabited.
অসংখ্য মানুষের হাহাকার শুনেও নিঃশব্দে নীরবে ও গঙ্গা তুমি ও গঙ্গা বইছো কেন বিস্তীর্ণ দুপারে অসংখ্য মানুষের হাহাকার শুনেও নিঃশব্দে নীরবে ও গঙ্গা তুমি ও গঙ্গা বইছো কেন
But before Moshuni, I went to Narayanganj, near Namkhana, to see for myself how the waters have been rising and what damages they have caused. During the monsoon high tides, the courtyards of homes are flooded. Shikha wades through the water to take me to the water's edge of her village. Shikha shows me the filth carried into her village by the sea waters. She pointed to the remains of her old house that had been washed away by the river. Nowhere to go, her family built another house beside the embankment. Sadly, even that house was washed away by the river. As I admired the greenery and ponds, I was suddenly shocked to see the rupture in the clay walls. These cracks showed me how fragile the delta was. Then I went to meet Uttara in another village nearby. She took me to the embankment past a large earth mover that had been brought to rebuild the embankment. Due to the heavy monsoons, it lay idle in the waterlogged land. At the embankment, Uttara showed me the spot through which the sea water had gushed in. She said that the embankment, which was once a protector, had now become a problem. It is an impediment now as it stops the water from flowing out of the flooded agricultural fields. Next, Uttara took me to her hut where there was a small fishing boat. She told me that apart from using the boat for fishing, they kept it there as a transport for a quick getaway. When the floodwaters rise and enter their home, then the boat becomes their only refuge. She packs the boat with food and the family has lived in it for even as long as a week. After Narayanganj, on the way to Moshuni, I met a couple fishing in the river.
আর কতদিন থাকবে এরকম নৌকোয়?
When they come into the river for fishing, they stay in the boat only for a day, she told me. She said that they always went back home before sundown. I asked the man, did it help having his wife beside him while fishing? He said yes, because she does the minute things of sorting through the catch and so on. And what about the children? How do they manage if she spends her day with him in the boat? He said that his son manages somehow and that his daughter is now married.
Sometimes I feel as though nature and human beings are engaged in a strange game in Sundarban. If nature moves one step forward, people step back, and then people step forward and nature steps back. And this embankment is a metaphor of this continuous game that human beings are playing with nature. This particular embankment that I am standing on now was built only a month ago. It's made of clay. Other embankments made of concrete have been breached time and again. I am literally at the end of the delta. This is Chor Moshuni, and I am in the Baliara part of Moshuni Chor. An embankment used to protect this village, most of which is fishing community. A couple of years ago, that embankment breached. Embankments, as you know, protect the Sundarbans. It has been the curse of Sundarbans at the same time. The rivers that bring the enormous quantities of silt that built the Sundarbans cannot now put that silt anywhere because of the embankments that protect the land from the rivers. As a result, in some places the river beds have become higher than the villages. Where we are is very low lying. The entire area is only about 2 meters higher than the sea level. And this year, the tidal surge was very high. They are increasingly becoming higher and higher. And sea water came in through this entire area. So what you are seeing here used to be farming land. And now the entire area has become a waterlogged land, as you can see, covered with saline water. This is the end, southern end of the village. What has happened as a result of the saltwater incursion into the village is horrible. And here you are seeing one of the examples of it. Before saline water got into the village, this used to be a freshwater pond. Children used to jump in it, swim in it, play in it, and women used to collect household water from here. This was also their social meeting point, a place where women gathered. And today you see this horrible sight. This is pure salt water, salt from the sea in a freshwater pond. Thinking about the villages, who pays the maximum price? It's women in these villages who pay the maximum price of the changes that happen after an embankment is breached.
One of the victims of the breached embankment was Ahida. I watched in amazement as she trudged through the water to fetch a pitcher of fresh water.
আচ্ছা আহিতুন, তুমি আমায় এখানকার মেয়েদের কথা বলো, মেয়েদের সব থেকে বড় সমস্যা কি?
মেয়েদের জল নেই, কষ্ট জল ফাঁক থেকে আনতে হয় খাবার থেকে।
নোনা জলের জন্য টিউবওয়েলের জল,
টিউবওয়েলের জলে সব
সবাইকে টিউবওয়েলের জল,
হ্যাঁ সব টিউবওয়েলের
তাহলে
জল।
মিষ্টি জলটা তোমরা টিউবওয়েল থেকে আনো?
ভালো, কলের পানি থেকে বয়ে এনে গা হাত ধুতে হয়, সবাই কাপড় চোপড় ধুতে হয়, এই কষ্ট।
তাহলে কাপড় চোপড় ধোয়ার জন্য, গোসল করার জন্য
এইসব টিউবওয়েলের জল আনতে হয়।
টিউবওয়েলটা কত দূরে?
দূরে।
Most importantly, all water sources in the village, they become saline, and women whose responsibility is to collect water, they then have to trudge to the nearest tube well, which can be as much as 10 minutes away. A fair distance, they have to walk to collect 10 to 20 buckets of water every day for washing and cleaning, for drinking, and for washing the utensils. So the entire households depend on the supply of sweet water or fresh water that is brought by women. In a way, women are paying the maximum price for climate change that's affecting Sundarbans. In Sundarban, the biggest difference today is between the haves and the have-nots. People who have a little bit of money, they are trying to adjust. They are trying to adjust with a terrible situation that's facing them. But people like Bhabani, who have nothing left to them, how do they survive? They survive on water's edge, literally and figuratively. Here you're seeing Bhabani's house. This is the way she has been living for 3 years. It's a house made of bamboo and polythene sheets and built on stilts. Is this a way to live? Where will she go? The next destination is out of Sundarban, leave Sundarban and go to a city to work as a daily wage laborer or a domestic help. In spite of everything, the population of Sundarban grew at a very rapid rate. From around 1.5 million in 1951, just after India's independence, today there are around 4.5 million people living in Sundarban. And what's more, the density of population is also very high. As a result of that, each cyclone, each flood event, each tidal surge takes many more lives than anywhere else in the world. This has led to a growing awareness amongst organizations about the need to protect the people. And what they have provided is, amongst many other things, is flood shelters like this one. The building behind me, as you can see, is standing on stilts, and it's raised above the highest level of flood waters. The building also has a hand water pump which is located on the first floor. Climate change is a reality in Sundarban. It's happening. River banks are eroding, sea level is rising, salty, saline sea water is destroying people's farmlands. So what do people do when a rich agricultural land gets destroyed by saline water. Here you see people are using it for fish farming. People make do with whatever little they have now. This is what old houses used to be in Sundarbans, made of mud and bamboo. In old houses, you would see that the plinth level was quite low. The problem with the old houses was that the mud used to get washed away more easily during floods, which have now become more common. As a result, people are building up, and the houses here are now at a much higher level. The owner of this house tells us that it is 5 feet higher than the surrounding surface. And as you can see, it is also buttressed with something more solid than just clay. It's buttressed in this instance with tiles, but we have seen other houses that are buttressed by bricks or even concrete. This gives the householders a sense of security and rising above the waters when the waters themselves are rising beyond their control. I'm standing right at the edge of the river, one of the many rivers that make up this place, Sundarbans.
The Sundarban area comprises of trees and forests like this, with aerial roots sticking out of the mud. These special trees and shrubs grow in tidal swampy areas of the coasts in the tropics. They have innumerable tangled roots that grow above ground and that form dense thickets. The roots raise themselves above the soil to breathe because the low-lying areas get submerged by high tide twice every day. This mangrove forest is crucial to the survival of the Sundarbans. But the mangroves are fast depleting, partly due to human need for forest resources, fuel for everyday use, and wood for furniture and other purposes. What makes it worse is that little effort is being given to replanting these forests to maintain the fragile ecosystem. After all, it is the mangrove that keeps the deltaic ecosystem together. Mangroves offer the first line of defense in face of the onslaught from the rising sea levels, the tidal surges, and the tropical storms.
People talk about the Sundarban as a place which is constantly changing, dynamic. But we can also see it as a place that's continuously rising now. As the sea level rises, people also step up and they raise their houses. The entire place is rising. The houses are rising. The embankments, the heights of the embankments are also rising. It's a delta that is rising today.
Climate change is a global phenomenon, and as yet scientists are not really sure how it will affect whom and where. In the Sundarbans, the effects of a changing climate are already being experienced by women in remote villages. In places where women are struggling every day to maintain the well-being of themselves and their families. Yet, as we could see, the effects of a changing climate are not entirely destroying women of the Sundarbans. They remain indomitable in their spirit to survive, to fight back, and to keep the families going.
একটি কথা শোধাই শুধু তোমারে, ও নদীরে একটি কথা শোধাই শুধু তোমারে, বলো কোথায় তোমার দেশ, তোমার কি চলে শেষ, ও নদীরে একটি কথা শোধাই শুধু তোমারে, বলো